All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today, me and Rowdy are going to be breaking down the SEC championship game. Alabama's won six straight in this contest. Nick Saban's only lost once to Florida since becoming the head coach, and that was Alabama, and that was in 2008. These are the top two scoring offenses in the SEC. We kind of know what we're going to get from them. But, Rowdy, what are we going to get from the defenses, or what exactly are you looking for from the Alabama or Florida defense?
Well, let's go to who has the advantage on defense, and that's going to be Alabama. I think in a lot of facets, possibly all facets, they have the better overall defense. With Florida, I think their defense will be suspect. I think Mac Jones could have the better game. But yeah, I mean that's just a quick, short breakdown of what I expect from both defenses.
Yeah, neither defense is exactly been great this season. I mean, although they do rank first and second in sacks, with Florida being first, they post about 3 a game.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the jury's still out on the Alabama defense. Kind of hard to get a read on this unit. They haven't, they got torched by Ole Miss back on the 10th of October, and since
Mm-hmm.
then they've allowed 283 yards a game, and that includes Georgia the next week, where Georgia had success but couldn't finish drives in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama hasn't exactly faced great offenses since then, so I feel like the jury's still kind of out on this unit.
Yeah, like you said, defenses have been it really entirely throughout all of college football this year. Defenses have been kind of lackluster. Offenses have just been up. But I think Kyle Trask and Mac Jones. It's a battle between whose defense is going to bend and which of those guys is going to put up more numbers. I think Mac he'll have the advantage in that. I just don't think Florida's defense, they can get to him, but I don't think that they will get to him as much as they hope and enough for them to make it a difference.
Yeah, Zachary Carter and Brenton Cox, they've been, stellar up front. But the secondary has really struggled. They gave up 240 yards in back-to-back games, and they gave up, over 300 to Vanderbilt just a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Florida has also struggled to play man-to-man coverage, and they've also been, a soft defense that has struggled to tackle. And trying to tackle Najee Harris, I mean, if you're going to struggle in that category, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, Florida, they're physical, and they've had a few guys out: Jeremiah Moon, Sean Davis, and those are Sean Davis, a guy in the secondary, Moon, a linebacker. Moon was effective last year, and like you said, Najee Harris, he's a big guy, and he's hard to slow down. And yeah, like you said, this yardage for Florida needs to be down because Alabama can get it done through the air and on the ground. Either way, Florida needs to step up.
Yeah, for sure. Najee Harris, over 1,000 yards, 22 touchdowns. He's a bit of a sleeper in this Heisman race. And I think Alabama has, 3 guys who could possibly win the Heisman here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, there's 4 Heisman candidates in here. And I think personally, I used to not be sold on Kyle Trask. And me personally, I'm not the biggest Florida fan. But Trask, I think he leads. I mean, his stats are stellar. He's got 13 more touchdowns than Mac. He's got 2 more interceptions. But the 70% completion percentage is very impressive. And his 3,700 yards is really impressive, especially in a condensed schedule like we're getting this year.
Yeah, Trask, I mean, a lot of people figured he'd have a great year this season, but I don't think we expected him to be as elite as he's been. Kyle Pitts has also been tough to contain. 11 touchdowns in 7 games. That's just astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
Kadarius Toney, he's a heck of an athlete. They need to give him around 10 touches. The Florida offense, they struggle to run the ball, towards the bottom of the conference in rushing offense. They need to give him a handful of sweeps or touch passes to help try to set the edge so UF can maybe, run the ball between the tackles, just a little bit, because this offense cannot be one-dimensional and try to beat Alabama like that.
Absolutely. Talking about Toney for a minute, like you said, Toney, he is one of the most electric players in the SEC and in the country. He's got a punt and a rushing touchdown along with his 9 receiving touchdowns. He's the leading receiver for Florida. And, you want to talk about Toney? Well, they've got Trevon Grimes. You want to talk about Grimes? They've got Shorter. I mean, they have one of the most stacked wide receiving cores in the SEC, possibly in the country as well. They're definitely behind Alabama. And speaking of Alabama receivers, is Jalen Waddle going to be back? What do you think?
There's been some reports, his injury he had, that's kind of a quick turnaround. Preferably, they'd probably like to keep him, hidden until the playoffs, because I don't think they need him in this game. But if he's healthy enough and he's cleared by the doctors, get him out there for a couple of touches.
Mm-hmm.
One more dynamic of your offense that Florida has to contain, and they've not proven this year that they can do that, especially last week against LSU.
And one thing, I will be honest, I'm not entirely sure how it goes in from this. We're going to basketball for a minute. Some guys, you got 5 men on the court. You've got your one guy, say Kawhi Leonard gets hurt, but you put him out there, he's still going to draw that attention because he's on the field. I think we could see that same type, because we saw what Devontae Smith said. He's ready. He waddles back. Is he going to be back for this game? It's not entirely sure. I don't think it'll make a difference because they've got Mechie and they've got Slade Bolden, Miller Forrestall, Jaleel Billingsley. They've got a great offensive front, receivers, tight ends. I don't think it'll make a difference, but he's on the field. That means that's one less guy that you can use on Smitty. That's one less guy you can use on Mechie and even Najee. I mean, so him being in this game or not, I think he has more of an impact, obviously being in the game, but I think he would mostly just be used as a decoy in this game.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that, because the safeties just have to be great in this game, especially against Devontae Smith. You throw out Jalen Waddle's speed out there, that gives you, something you might have to back into a cover 3 look or something like that. And Florida just hasn't been great in coverage. Man to man, I don't think they're really going to be calling that a lot this game. But if Jalen Waddle's out there, it really just throws your coverage in a bind.
I would say if we're going to talk the secondary for Florida really quick, I would say Kaiir Elam and Sean Davis, they need to be the best guys to step up. Marco, just don't take somebody's shoe and throw it down the field and cost you the game. If he does that again, I might lose it.
Yeah, Marco Wilson for sure going to have to, play a lot better after that,
He's probably getting, he's definitely, these guys are on social media. They hear all the flack. They see it. I'll bet Marco.
Yeah. I think he's going to have a good game.
Yeah, I hope he comes out and he kind of he quiets the noise. And it would be great if he even had a great game against, Devontae Smith. If he could slow down Devontae Smith. I mean, it seems like no one's been able to do that this year. So that would be nice to see.
Yeah, certainly one of the nation's top receivers. Moving on, if you want to beat this Alabama team, you need to bring a quarterback. Florida has that. We've talked about that. I compare this offense sort of the Ole Miss offenses, led by Chad Kelly many years ago. They struggled to run the ball in those games, but they had an elite tight end, a lot of weapons outside, and they just threw the rock all around the yard. And it was Nick Saban's nightmare for those 2 years.
Yeah. Do you think that you brought up those two teams. Let's compare those two teams' defense. Which one do you think is better, Florida or that Ole Miss?
I like that. I don't really remember too much about the Ole Miss unit, but I do know that it was a tough unit up front. I know they had Benito Jones. They had Robert Nickembike. That was tough. They was tough on the interior. In Florida, I think that's the best part of their defense is in the front 7, but they're not exactly. They don't have a great pass rushing presence through the interior of their line.
Yeah, that's a solid debate. I really like how you brought up Chad Kelly. I think that's a pretty good comparison. I think Trask is definitely better, but in terms of the offense, yes, that's a pretty good comparison. And for contrast, Alabama's defense, their pass defense is allowing 11 touchdowns and 11 interceptions on 227 yards passing a game. So that's definitely something that Trask is going to need to be looking for because their secondary of Pitts, Job, Moore, and Surtain, those guys are some dogs out in the back of the secondary.
Yeah, they sure are. I think it's a great matchup. The passing offense, the aerial attack against that passing defense. Because I still believe that jury's still out on that defense. And I think this is an important game. A lot of people think it's going to be a blowout, but I think we're going to learn a lot about both of these teams in this game.
I will be surprised if Florida they keep it within 10. Alabama's averaging almost 50 points a game. Florida is just 9 points behind with averaging 41.2, but 50 points. I mean, that's NCAA and Madden numbers we're talking.
Yeah. These are the top 2 scoring offenses in the SEC. Bama actually leads the nation in touchdowns. It's just looking at this team, it's just like who's going to beat this team? Just because their offense has been that good. Mac Jones has a 76% completion percentage, and Najee's pumping out over 100 yards a game. And just who are you supposed to slow down? What are you supposed to commit to, really?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think I think Dan Mullen, he's got his work cut out for him 100%. this could be questionably one of the better Alabama teams. Maybe it's just the COVID era talking to me or recency bias, but it just seems like Alabama offensively, you just can't stop them. And we saw it last year where they got stopped. This year, barely anyone has come close since week 1. They've had one game in which they have not had 40-point scoring, and I believe that was against Mizzou in their first place.
Yeah, and I think it might take a defensive guru, like Brett Venables, to figure out a plan to kind of, to conjure a way to stop this offense, because I don't believe Florida's gonna be able to slow them down. I see Alabama hitting their scoring mark for the year in this game. I think they're gonna score just around 50 points. The question is, can Florida, go back and forth with them? They certainly have the tools, but being one-dimensional once again, do you think that they can make this a shootout?
I honestly do think that it has the potential to be a shootout. These are two of the top scoring offenses in the SEC. You've got your two Heisman candidates at quarterback, and I think Florida being one-dimensional, teams can be one-dimensional until they're not. And I think if Florida is going to go into this game, and if they don't succeed through the air, I don't think they win the game, because I don't think that their rushing game is going to have an impact. I think that they could rip off a few big plays, maybe a special teams big play, but their ground game is, I think it'll be limited.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the best way that, account for a limited ground game is, just flip it to defense and force some turnovers to set up some short fields. The same thing can be said about special teams, stealing possessions in this. That's extremely important against, an offense that's as powerful as this one.
Yeah, and I mean, we started out talking about the defense, but the offense, I think there will be a lot of points in this game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. If it is, I would be surprised, because this does seem like a more advanced Florida offense. They feel a lot more smooth. They look smooth. Defensively, though, I think their defense was better last year. They're allowing 13 more points than they did last year, close to it. So they're definitely down in the defensive department, but offense, I think we'll see a shootout, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been disappointing to see the Florida defense. They've been known for defense for so many years. They finally find good offense, and their defense just crumbles. Over 26 points per game they're allowing, and Bama's a 17-point favorite. They can blow out anybody they play. And again, I've said it many times. Their defense the jury's still out on them. They gave up 10 passing touchdowns in the first 5 games. Only 1 since then. So the young secondary is kind of molded a little bit. They don't exactly have the opponents that you would expect to come out there and just throw all over the place. But I think this is gonna be a good game. I do think we're gonna see a lot of offense. If you got anything else to add, go ahead. If not, just go ahead and shoot me a game pick.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna get to keys to victory. One key for each team. For Alabama, their key is clearly to shut down Kyle Trask and force Florida to the ground game. We've talked about that, and so now for Florida, I think that they have to keep up with Alabama. It's pretty much the exact opposite for Alabama's keys to victory. Kyle Trask needs to have, I think he needs to have the game of his life to win this game. I hate to say it that way, but Alabama, it's going to be, can you keep up with Alabama? It's not, can you hold Alabama to scoring? It's, can you keep up with? And I think, can Trask do that? That's the biggest question, but I'm going to go Alabama. I'm going to say Alabama 45, Florida 30.
Actually, and Kyle Trask in Florida, they're plenty capable of playing from behind, but that's not going to be ideal in this situation. If they can run the ball, just for a good 4 to 5 yards per carry, because they're not going to, they're going to run maybe 20, 25 times, if that. If they can do that and average about 4 to 5 yards per carry, then you might have something. But for the most part, it's just hard to bet against Alabama, even with the question marks on defense. This offense has proven itself. It doesn't really matter who they play. They're gonna have success against them. So I'm thinking Alabama. 45-31 is gonna be the score. I hope this game is a lot closer than it is. Than the spread indicates. As a 17-point favorite, I hope this game's closer than that. For the sake of being a college football fan, but it's just hard to expect this to be, a one possession shootout with a couple of minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, unless you're, a Florida fan or someone knows something about Florida that the average college football fan doesn't know, it's a clear reason for Alabama to be a favorite and, be a 2-touchdown favorite almost. So I'm right on par with you, Dalton. I think we've got a really good matchup, but it's still going to be who can score the most. But like I said, Bama 45, Florida 30.
Yeah, one last thing. If the Florida, pass rush, they're averaging over 3 sacks a game. If they can, put some pressure on Mac Jones and bring him to the ground some to end some drives, and that's another thing that's really going to be big for them. Just getting stops is just the biggest key for Florida.
I agree.
Yep. So I think that's all for this game. We'll see how it is on Saturday. Expecting a really good game in Atlanta, and I'm. Thank you, Rowdy, for your time.
You.
Appreciate you coming on, and everyone, make sure to subscribe, like, leave a comment.
All right, y'all, take it easy.